The warship Gorzen loomed in orbit above Earth, its jagged silhouette cutting through the black void like a predatory fawn. Inside its vast metallic halls, the Zainid Supreme Commander Ralzeth stood before a semicircle of his subordinates. His obsidian armor gleamed under the cold, artificial light, and his elongated, serrated jaw clicked faintly as he spoke. Humanity's last effort, Ralzeth sneered, his voice reverberating through the chamber, is to send us a single diplomat, a pitiful creature, armed with words and desperation. A ripple of laughter echoed among the assembled Zainid officers, their elongated, segmented bodies twitching in amusement. Behind them, enormous viewing screens displayed Earth in its fragile beauty, its blue and green surface now overshadowed by the looming fleet of Zainid warships. The chamber doors slid open with a low hiss, and the laughter abruptly died. Gabriel Richards entered, flanked by two hulking Zainid guards. The humans had called him a diplomat, but as he stepped into the room, there was an air about him that suggested something far more dangerous. His gait was calm, deliberate. His tailored black suit, free of any insignia, contrasted sharply with the alien soldier's grotesque battle gear. The faintest smirk played on his lips, as though he found the situation mildly amusing. The guards shoved him forward, and Gabriel stumbled slightly but didn't fall. He caught himself with a grace that seemed rehearsed, his sharp green eyes scanning the room. The assembled Zainid officers stared at him, some with disgust, others with morbid curiosity. Ralzeth's gaze bore into him like a knife. "You are Gabriel Richards," Ralzeth said, his tone dripping with contempt. "The so-called diplomat of Earth." Gabriel inclined his head slightly, neither submissive nor defiant. "Commander Ralzeth, I presume." His voice was even, almost polite, but something in it made even the more battle-hardened Zainid shift uneasily. "You presume correctly," Ralzeth replied, stepping down from his dais to tower over the human. "Do you understand the futility of your mission, or must I explain it to you?" Gabriel's smirk widened fractionally. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You believe Earth is yours for the taking, that humanity is weak and disorganized. I'm here to show you that you've made a mistake." Ralzeth tilted his head, a low rumble emanating from his throat. It was a sound somewhere between amusement and warning. "You come aboard my warship, surrounded by my soldiers, and dare to speak of mistakes? Perhaps I should have you dissected to see if all humans share your insolence." Gabriel didn't flinch. His gaze was steady, piercing. "You could try, Commander, but I doubt you'd like what you'd find." There was a pause, heavy and electric, as the two locked eyes. The Zainid officers exchanged uneasy glances. Gabriel's calmness was unsettling. It was the calm of a man who knew something they did not. Ralzeth broke the silence with a guttural laugh, stepping back and spreading his clawed hands. "Very well, human. Speak. Tell us what desperate bargain your kind has sent you to propose." Gabriel reached into the small, unassuming briefcase he carried, his movements slow and deliberate. The guards tensed, their weapons ready. But Gabriel merely withdrew a sleek device, a holographic projector. He placed it on the table between them and activated it with a light tap. The air shimmered, and a detailed, three-dimensional map of the Gorzen appeared above the table, rotating slowly. Every corridor, every system, every structural weakness was laid bare. The room fell into stunned silence. Ralzeth's amusement vanished. His segmented body stiffened, and his claws flexed involuntarily. "How?" Gabriel cut him off, his tone still infuriatingly calm. "You think you've studied us, Commander, but we've been studying you. For years. Your fleet, your technology, your tactics. All of it." Ralzeth's eyes narrowed, his massive frame looming over the table. "This trickery changes nothing. You are one man, alone, aboard my ship. Do you truly believe you can intimidate me?" Gabriel leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a near whisper that forced the room into a tense stillness. "This isn't intimidation, Commander. It's a warning. You see, I didn't come here to beg for Earth survival. I came here to give you a choice. Ralzetha's claws scraped against the table, the sound grating and ominous. A choice? Gabriel's smile faded, replaced by a cold, unyielding expression. Release the human prisoners you've taken. Leave Earth's orbit. Never return. Do this. And I promise you'll live to regret underestimating us. The chamber erupted in derisive laughter from the Zainid officers, but it faltered when Gabriel didn't react. His calmness was like a coiled serpent, ready to strike. Ralzetha's laugh was the loudest, a guttural roar that echoed off the metallic walls. You truly are a fool, human. Do you think your empty threats will save your pathetic species? Gabriel straightened, adjusting the cuffs of his suit as though the conversation bored him. Empty threats? No, Commander. I never make empty threats. I simply deliver consequences. As if on cue, the holographic map flickered, and key sections of the warship began flashing red. Alarms blared as the ship's system stuttered, lights dimming momentarily. The Zainid officers scrambled, shouting orders into their communication devices. Ralzeth rounded on Gabriel, his claws slamming into the table with enough force to crack it. What have you done? Gabriel met his furious gaze, unflinching. I told you. We've been studying you. You left vulnerabilities in your systems, and we exploited them. My team is already aboard this ship, disabling your defenses. Your fleet will be next. Ralzetha's fury was palpable, his serrated jaw opening in a primal roar. Guards! Kill him! The Zainid guard stepped forward, weapons raised, but Gabriel moved faster than anyone expected. In a blur of motion, he disarmed the nearest guard, using the alien's weapon to incapacitate the others in a series of precise, brutal strikes. The Zainid officers watched, stunned, as their prey became a predator. Gabriel stood over the fallen guards, the alien weapon in his hand. He looked at Ralzeth, his calm expression now tinged with something darker. You should have listened, Commander. Ralzetha's jaw twitched, his claws flexing as he weighed his options. Gabriel tilted his head slightly, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. You still have a choice, but your time is running out. The alarms grew louder, and the holographic map showed the ship systems failing one by one. Gabriel turned and walked toward the chamber doors, his back to the seething Zainid commander. Just before leaving, he paused, glancing over his shoulder. Make your decision wisely, Ralzeth. You won't get a second chance. The doors hissed shut behind him, leaving the room in stunned silence. Ralzetha's claws dug into the table, his eyes burning with fury. But beneath the rage was something new, fear. Gabriel moved swiftly through the dimly lit corridors of the Gorzon, his every step purposeful. The Zainid guard's heavy footsteps echoed faintly behind him, a sign that reinforcements were being mobilized. He didn't look back. Fear wasn't in his nature, and hesitation was a luxury he couldn't afford. His grip on the alien weapon was firm but relaxed, his eyes scanning ahead for signs of movement. Every corner of this ship, every route, every blind spot had been studied, mapped, and memorized long before he ever set foot on board. His comm device buzzed faintly in his ear. A familiar voice crackled through. Gabriel, systems are down in sectors 7 through 12. We're moving to the reactor core now. Expect resistance to intensify. It was Aiden Cross, the operative who had been Gabriel's closest ally for over a decade. Aiden's calm, analytical tone was a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding on the ship, but Gabriel found it reassuring. He tapped the device discreetly. Copy that. Keep me updated. No missteps. A faint chuckle came in reply. You know me better than that. Gabriel allowed himself a faint smile. He and Aiden had shared countless missions, most of them so classified that even Earth's highest-ranking officials didn't know the full extent of what they had accomplished. Where Gabriel was a blade, Aiden was the mind, precise, calculating, and impossible to outwit. Together, they were the best humanity had to offer, a team forged in fire and tempered by trust. The sound of clattering metal snapped Gabriel's attention back to the present. A group of Zaynid soldiers rounded the corner ahead, their weapons gleaming in the low light. Without breaking stride, Gabriel raised his stolen rifle and fired a series of controlled bursts. The energy projectiles struck their targets with pinpoint accuracy, dropping the aliens before they had a chance to react. Gabriel stepped over their bodies without so much as a second glance. He reached the maintenance hatch and paused, kneeling to retrieve a small cylindrical device from his suit pocket. Placing it against the hatch's control panel, he activated it with a flick of his thumb. The device hummed softly before releasing a pulse that short-circuited the panel. The hatch hissed open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit crawl space. Gabriel slipped inside, sealing the hatch behind him. The confined space forced him to move on hands and knees, but he didn't mind. These spaces had always felt familiar, comforting even in their simplicity. They reminded him of his training years ago, in a program so secret that it had never officially existed. The memory surfaced unbidden. A dimly lit facility deep beneath the surface of Earth, where a select few were trained to become humanity's ultimate weapons. The instructors had been brutal, the regimen unforgiving. Most of the recruits hadn't made it past the first year, but Gabriel had thrived. He had pushed himself harder, faster, further than anyone else, driven by a single unwavering belief that humanity was worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for. He shook the memory away as his calm buzzed again. "We've reached the core," Aiden reported, "but it's heavily guarded. We'll need a distraction to clear the path." Gabriel checked his watch. Every second mattered. "Hold your position. I'll draw them away." Without waiting for a reply, he pushed himself out of the crawl space and into another corridor. This one was darker, the lights flickering intermittently. The air here was heavier, charged with the hum of the ship's main reactor nearby. Gabriel adjusted his grip on the rifle and moved with practiced efficiency, his senses attuned to every sound, every movement. Ahead, he spotted another group of Zaynid soldiers, their attention focused on a bulkhead leading to the core. Gabriel didn't hesitate. He fired a shot into the ceiling above them, the impact sending a shower of sparks raining down. The Zaynids whirled, their weapons raised, and Gabriel ducked into the shadows. He fired again, this time hitting a support beam that sent a deafening clang through the corridor. The aliens took the bait, charging toward the source of the disturbance. Gabriel slipped past them, his movements silent and fluid. He reached a vantage point overlooking the reactor chamber, where Aiden and the rest of the team were waiting. They were huddled behind a stack of crates, their weapons trained on the heavily armed Zaynid guards patrolling the area. Gabriel tapped his comm, "You're clear. Move now." Aiden and the others sprang into action, their coordinated assault taking the Zaynids by surprise. Gabriel watched for a moment, his sharp eyes assessing every detail. Aiden's team was efficient, their training evident in every precise movement. Within minutes, the guards were neutralized, and Aiden signaled the all-clear. Gabriel descended into the chamber, his boots hitting the metal floor with a muted thud. Aiden met him halfway, a faint grin on his face. "Told you I wouldn't slip up." Gabriel smirked. "Let's hope the rest of this mission goes as smoothly." The team moved to the reactor's control console, where Aiden began uploading the virus they had designed to cripple the ship. Gabriel stood guard, his weapon ready, his senses on high alert. The tension in the room was palpable, every second stretching into an eternity. Aiden's fingers danced across the console, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Almost there," he muttered. "Just a few more seconds." A sudden noise behind them made Gabriel spin, his weapon raised. A lone Zaynid officer stood in the doorway, his armor scorched and his weapon trembling in his claws. Gabriel stepped forward, his expression cold and unyielding. "Don't!" The Zaynid hesitated, his eyes darting between Gabriel and the rest of the team. For a moment, it seemed he might lower his weapon. Then, with a defiant snarl, he raised it. Gabriel fired first. The Zaynid dropped to the ground lifeless. Gabriel lowered his weapon, his expression unreadable. He turned back to Aiden, who was watching him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Done," Aiden announced, stepping back from the console. "The virus is in. This ship is as good as dead." Gabriel nodded. "Then we moved to the extraction point. No delays." The team fell into formation, their movements swift and coordinated. As they made their way through the ship, the effects of the virus became increasingly evident. Lights flickered and died. Doors malfunctioned, and the distant sounds of explosions echoed through the corridors. Chaos was spreading, just as Gabriel had planned. But as they neared the extraction point, Gabriel couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The Xanids were brutal, cunning, and unrelenting, and Ralzeth was still out there. They reached the hangar bay, where a sleek human shuttle awaited them. The team began boarding, but Gabriel lingered for a moment, his eyes scanning the darkened expanse of the ship. He felt the weight of the moment, the knowledge that their mission, while successful, was only the beginning of something far larger. Aiden called to him from the shuttle. "Gabriel, let's go." With a final glance at the crumbling warship, Gabriel boarded the shuttle. As the doors closed behind him and the engines roared to life, he allowed himself a brief moment of relief. But deep down, he knew this was just a calm before the storm. The shuttle's engines roared, but Gabriel's focus remained on the flickering lights and muffled explosions rippling through the alien warship. Every detail mattered now. Every faint sound, every shift in the atmosphere of the ship. The virus had done its job, crippling the Gorzan systems, but it hadn't eliminated the Xanids' will to fight. If anything, the chaos had only made them more dangerous. Gabriel's instincts told him the next move would be theirs, and it would be brutal. Aiden's voice cut through his thoughts. The fleet's still holding position. No sign of retreat. Gabriel turned to face him, his expression unreadable. Ralzeth won't run. Not yet. He thinks he can turn this around. Aiden frowned, leaning against the shuttle's control console. And can he? Gabriel's silence was answer enough. The Xanid Supreme Commander was a strategist, a predator in every sense of the word. He wouldn't accept defeat until there was no other choice, and even then, he'd make it costly. That was what made him dangerous. As if summoned by their conversation, the shuttle's communication system crackled to life. A guttural, menacing voice came through, thick with malice. "Human, Gabriel Richards, do you truly believe this pitiful rebellion of yours changes anything?" Gabriel exchanged a glance with Aiden before stepping forward, activating the calm Ralzeth. "Still clinging to the idea that you're in control. I see." A low, guttural laugh rumbled through the speakers. "Control is not something you take from me, human. You've disrupted my ship, yes, but this is merely a delay. You will die here, along with your kind." Gabriel's grip on the console tightened. "You had a chance to walk away. You ignored it. Everything that happens next is on you." The laughter stopped, replaced by an ominous silence. Then, without warning, the ship shook violently. Gabriel grabbed a handhold, steadying himself as the shuttle rocked. Aiden swore under his breath, checking the readouts. "They've activated some kind of failsafe. Reactor overload. This whole ship's going to blow." Gabriel's mind worked quickly, piecing together the Xanid strategy. Ralzeth wasn't planning to save the ship. He was planning to use it as a weapon, a catastrophic explosion that would devastate everything within range, including Earth's forces. It was a scorched earth tactic, pure and ruthless. "Can you disable it?" Gabriel asked, his tone sharp. Aiden shook his head. "Not from here. They've locked us out of the mainframe. Someone would have to override it directly at the reactor core." Gabriel didn't hesitate. "Then that's where I'm going." Aiden stared at him, his expression a mix of disbelief and frustration. "Gabriel, you can't take on an entire ship's worth of Xanids alone." Gabriel's gaze was steely. "I'm not asking for permission." Before Aiden could argue further, Gabriel grabbed his weapon and moved toward the shuttle's exit. The rest of the team, overhearing the exchange, stepped forward, their faces set with determination. "We'll back you up," one of the operatives said. His name was Carter, a sharpshooting veteran who had fought alongside Gabriel in countless battles. "We're not letting you do this alone." Gabriel hesitated for the briefest of moments. He was used to working solo, but this wasn't the time for pride. He nodded once. "Let's move." The team exited the shuttle and re-entered the chaotic corridors of the Gorzon. The ship's condition had deteriorated further. Sparks flew from exposed wiring, and the sound of distant explosions grew louder with every passing moment. The Xanids, desperate to regain control, had regrouped, their forces patrolling the ship in tight formations. Gabriel led the way, his weapon at the ready. Every encounter with the Xanids was swift and brutal, each skirmish a testament to the team's training and coordination. Carter's marksmanship was precise, while Aiden provided critical intel on enemy movements, guiding them toward the reactor core. But the deeper they went, the heavier the resistance became. It was clear the Xanids were aware of their goal and were determined to stop them. Gabriel's resolve only hardened. Every step closer to the reactor was a step closer to neutralizing Ralzetha's final gambit. They reached a heavily fortified corridor leading to the reactor chamber. The Xanids had set up barricades, their soldiers entrenched and ready. Gabriel assessed the situation quickly, his mind racing through options. They couldn't afford to waste time in a prolonged firefight. He turned to Aiden. "Can you access the environmental controls from here?" Aiden scanned the nearby terminal, his fingers flying over the interface. "I can vent the atmosphere in that corridor, but it'll only give us a few seconds before the emergency systems kick in." "That's all we need," Gabriel said. "Do it." The moment the atmosphere vented, chaos erupted among the Xanid soldiers. The sudden loss of pressure disoriented them, their movements sluggish as they struggled to adapt. Gabriel and his team seized the opportunity, advancing with ruthless precision. Within moments, the corridor was clear. They breached the reactor chamber, the massive, pulsating core dominating the room. Ralzeth was waiting for them, flanked by his elite guards. His eyes gleamed with fury, but there was something else in his expression, something close to respect. "You've come far, human," Ralzeth said, his voice a low growl. "But this is where it ends." Gabriel stepped forward, his weapon trained on the Xanid commander. "It ends when I say it does." Ralzetha's claws flexed, and the air seemed to hum with tension. "Do you truly think you can stop me? Even if you destroy this ship, my fleet will continue the fight. Your victory is an illusion." Gabriel's response was ice cold. "The difference between you and me, Commander, is that I fight for something greater than myself. You are just another tyrant who doesn't know when he's lost." The battle that followed was fierce and unrelenting. Gabriel and his team fought with everything they had, their movements a blur of strategy and raw determination. Ralzeth proved to be a formidable opponent, his strength and cunning pushing Gabriel to his limits. But Gabriel had faced worse. He had trained for this, lived for this. Every punch, every shot, every calculated move brought him closer to victory. And when the final blow came, it was swift and decisive. Ralzeth fell, his massive form collapsing to the ground. Gabriel stood over him, breathing hard. The room was silent except for the steady hum of the reactor. Ralzeth looked up at him, his eyes dimming. "You think this will save you?" he rasped. "You have no idea what's coming." Gabriel didn't respond. He turned to Aiden. "Shut it down." Aiden moved quickly, working to override the reactor's failsafe. The rest of the team secured the area, their eyes on the downed Xanid commander. Gabriel watched as the reactor's hum began to subside, the threat of catastrophic explosion neutralized. As they prepared to leave, Gabriel glanced back at Ralzeth. The Xanid's words lingered in his mind, a warning that refused to be ignored. But there was no time to dwell on it now. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The lights flickered as the reactor's core stabilized, its deadly hum replaced by the faint, rhythmic pulse of cooling systems coming back online. Gabriel stood amidst the chaos, his chest rising and falling steadily, though his heart still beat like a war drum. The team around him moved with practiced efficiency, securing the room, checking for remaining threats. But Gabriel's attention remained locked on Ralzeth. The Zainid commander lay crumpled on the ground, his breathing labored, his once imposing figure reduced to a shadow of its former self. Gabriel crouched beside him, his piercing gaze meeting the Zainid's dimming eyes. "Your arrogance blinded you," Gabriel said, his voice low but unyielding. "You thought we were prey, that we would cower, plead. But you've seen now, haven't you? You've seen what happens when you push us too far." Ralzeth coughed, a wet, guttural sound that echoed in the cavernous reactor chamber. Despite the obvious pain, he managed a faint, twisted smile. "You are different human," he rasped. "But your victory is fleeting. You cannot comprehend the forces you've awakened." Gabriel's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to remain calm. The Zainid was stalling, and he wasn't about to let the commander plant seeds of doubt. Rising to his feet, Gabriel gestured to Aiden, who was finishing the final override at the console. "How much longer?" "Systems fully stabilized," Aiden replied without looking up, his fingers flying over the keys. "Fail-safes deactivated. Reactors under our control." He glanced at Gabriel, a wry grin breaking through the tension. "We just saved their ship from blowing itself up. That's gotta sting." Gabriel nodded, but his mind was already elsewhere. Ralzetha's words hung heavy in the air, a warning he couldn't shake. It wasn't fear that gnawed at him. Gabriel Richards didn't fear, but the uneasy certainty that the Zainids weren't the galaxy's only predators. Still, the immediate threat had been neutralized, and that was enough for now. A sharp beep from Aiden's console drew everyone's attention. Boss?" Aiden said, his voice suddenly grim. "You might want to see this." Gabriel stepped to the console, his sharp eyes scanning the data streaming across the screen. It was a communication log, a heavily encrypted transmission sent from the Gorzon just moments before the reactor had been stabilized. Aiden tapped a few keys, breaking through the encryption with practiced ease, and the contents of the message unfolded before them. The message wasn't from Ralzeth. It wasn't even addressed to the Zainid fleet. It was a summons sent to a distant, uncharted sector of the galaxy. The text was minimal, the meaning clear. Reinforcements requested. Enemy formidable. Prepare accordingly. Gabriel's blood ran cold. "They call for backup," he said, his voice like steel. Aiden frowned. "Backup? From who?" Ralzetha's rasping laugh cut through the tension like a blade. The Zainid commander shifted weakly, his voice barely audible but dripping with malice. "You think we are the worst of your nightmares, but we are but a fragment of what lies beyond. They will come, human, and when they do, you will understand the futility of resistance." Gabriel stepped closer, looming over the dying alien. "Who are they? What's coming?" But Ralzeth only laughed again, the sound gurgling as his injuries overtook him. With a final, shuddering breath, the Zainid commander went still, his lifeless eyes fixed on the man who had bested him. Gabriel didn't flinch, didn't waver. He had seen death too many times for it to unsettle him now. Aiden broke the silence. "We need to get off this ship. Now." Gabriel turned to the team. "Sweep the rest of the chamber. Make sure no one else sends a signal out. Carter, prep the shuttle for immediate departure." The team moved with precision, their trust in Gabriel absolute. As they worked, Gabriel lingered near the reactor console, his mind racing. Ralzeth was dead, but the fight wasn't over. The reinforcements, whoever they were, would come, and when they did, humanity would need to be ready. "Gabriel," Aiden's voice pulled him from his thoughts. The younger man stood by the reactor's mainframe, holding up a small, metallic device. "Found this embedded in the console. It's not Zainid tech." Gabriel took the device, his eyes narrowing as he examined it. It was sleek, almost organic in design, with faint etchings that pulsed faintly with an eerie light. Whatever it was, it didn't belong here. "Bag it," he said. "We'll analyze it back on Earth." The team regrouped quickly, their mission complete. As they made their way back to the shuttle, the ship around them continued to crumble. The virus had done its job too well, and the Gorzon was now little more than a drifting hulk. But the Xanids weren't the only ones who had suffered losses today. Gabriel carried the weight of every human life lost in this war, every sacrifice made to reach this point. He would carry it forever. They boarded the shuttle, and as the doors sealed behind them, Gabriel allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. He stood at the viewport, watching as the Gorzon shrank into the distance, its once mighty form now a faint silhouette against the backdrop of Earth. The planet below was safe for now, but the stars beyond were growing darker, more dangerous. Aiden joined him at the viewport. "Think we'll ever get a break?" Gabriel smirked faintly, his eyes still fixed on the void. "Not in this lifetime." The shuttle's engines roared to life, propelling them toward the waiting fleet. As they approached the command ship, a message came through the comms, a report from Earth. The intercepted Xanid transmission had been decoded further. It spoke of an empire far greater than the Xanids, a coalition of species united by conquest and subjugation. Their name was simple, chilling: the Dominion. Gabriel's fists clenched at his sides. He turned away from the viewport, his mind already racing with strategies, contingencies, plans. The Dominion would come, just as Ralzeth had promised. But Gabriel Richards had never backed down from a fight, and he wasn't about to start now. "We'll be ready," he said, his voice firm. "Whatever's out there, we'll be ready." As the shuttle docked and the team disembarked, Gabriel felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was humanity's spearhead, their first and last line of defense. The galaxy had underestimated Earth once, but it wouldn't happen again, not while he was still standing. The story wasn't over, it was just beginning, and Gabriel Richards, the so-called Baba Yaga, was ready to face whatever came next.